Now, if you've spent any time building apps, whether it's NoCode, code, and you've used tools such as FlutterFlow or other tools, chances are you've used Firebase. Firebase is a Google's offering that provides amazing services to apps. So they provide a platform, a kind of an infrastructure that you can build your app on and leverage the services that they provide. And these are services like authentication, real-time database, storage, another database, machine learning, and a bunch of other services that make app development a lot easier because you don't have to go out and build all of this infrastructure, kind of the backbone in your app. And that way you can just focus on building your app and utilizing these services that allow you to scale your app easily and seamlessly. But Firebase is not the only kid on the block. There are also a bunch of other services that aim to provide similar services, similar infrastructure, and fundamental services to your apps that will help you to just focus on building your app as well as scaling it in the future. One of those other services is Supabase. Now, Supabase is an open source platform that aims to do kind of what Firebase is doing right now. That is to provide an array of services to your apps, things like authentications, functions, database, and stuff like that are going to help you to get you focused on the app while using all of these services to augment your app and make it a lot more useful to your users. And so in today's video, we're going to have a quick overview of what Supabase is and how it's going to make your development life a lot easier. And then we're going to jump into FlutterFlow, and I'm going to show you how you can leverage Supabase when you're building an app on the FlutterFlow platform. And so here we are on supabase.com. And this is what they promise: build in a weekend, scale to millions. Supabase is an open source Firebase alternative. Start your project with a Postgres database, authentication, instant APIs, edge functions, real-time subscriptions, and storage. So right off the bat, you can start kind of seeing parallels because they basically list a lot of things that Firebase provides right now. And so let's go ahead and log in into my account. If you don't have an account, you can easily create a free account and then you can log in. And once you're logged in, you're going to be on a page that looks kind of like this. You're probably not going to have any projects. And so let's go ahead and create a new project right now. I'm going to say new project. I'm just going to call it project 1. I'm going to give it a database password here. Okay, we're going to assign a region, and we also have a free tier pricing plan. We're going to say create new project. Now it's setting up our project right now. All right, so it has created our new project that we call project 1. And this is the screen that we see right here. Welcome to your new project. Your project has been deployed on its own instance with its own API and all set up and ready to use. So they tell you a little bit about the database, right? So get started by building out your database. They give you a bunch of other things. And before we kind of go deeper into some of the offerings, some of the things that we have as part of this project, let's quickly go over some of the things that we are given, okay? So we have this table editor here. And remember, we have a database. Now we can create various tables. We have a SQL editor here, okay, that you can use in order to generate SQL statements for manipulating data, such as creating a table, adding a column, comments, etc., etc. We have our main kind of database, right? This is going to list the tables. We have triggers, functions, extension, etc., etc. Even webhooks, which is very, very nice. We have authentication here. And here's where you're going to have a list of users if you're using this as an authentication backend for the app that you're building. And so you can go into policies, you can go into providers. Look at this. It supports a lot of different platforms, right? So we have email, phone, Apple, Azure, Bitbucket, Google, Facebook, etc., etc. So lots of authentication providers, email templates, okay, and the URL configuration. You can configure it to your to the base of your website, which is going to be used for all kinds of emails that you're going to be sending out. We also have storage, so you can create a bucket. We have edge functions here, so you can create various functions that are going to be running as part of your project infrastructure, okay? And then we have reports, logs, API docs, etc., etc. And so right off the bat, you're probably making a lot of parallels with Firebase, and that is obviously not by accident. This is supposed to be an open source alternative or a replacement for Firebase. Now, obviously, it does not include everything that Firebase includes. There are things that it does differently, namely database. And so when it comes to databases, it uses a Postgres database, and this is a relational database that has been around for ages. It's battle tested. It's a great database, but it's important to understand now this is a relational database. It's not the same thing when we're talking about Firebase, where you have Firestore and all of that, which is a NoSQL database. This is a relational database. So it's slightly different. We have SQL queries, we have table editor, we have, you can have views, you can create relationships. So it's a different paradigm when you compare it to NoSQL. And each one has its pros and cons. And so if you come over here, we have a table editor. I can go ahead and create a new table. So let's do that real quick. We're going to create a new table. And let's say we're building a simple app, something like a to-do app. So I'm just going to say to-do, and I can have a description. I can enable row-level security. I can make it real-time, so it's going to broadcast changes on this table to authorized subscribers. But we're just going to keep it simple, okay? So take a look at these columns, and these are like fields in Firestore, okay? So we have an ID, which is the primary field here, right? And then we have the created at, which is going to be automatically, it's going to fill it in with the time that's now. So anytime you create a new row in this table, this field is going to automatically be created. So we need a couple of more fields. So we're going to add 2 more columns. And the first one of these fields is going to be the name, or actually the task. Okay, so task type is going to be we're going to make it a text. And then we also have done, and this is going to be a Boolean. So if we come back over here, we have bool here, okay? And here you can specify a default value. There's not going to be any default values because we need to specify it. And that's pretty much all we have to do. We can hit save. And now it's adding these 4 columns to our new to-do table. And so here we are seeing our new table, and we are seeing columns here. So I can add a new row. I can click here and I can add a new row. This is automatically generated. This is automatically generated. So I can create a new task such as finish work. And this is not going to be done. So it's going to be false. Okay, I'm going to hit save. And now we have a row. Now, as you can see, this is automatically created. This is automatically created. And then we have these 2 fields. You can always add new fields here that are going to be part of this data, and they're called columns here. Now, if you click here, you have something called RLS, which is row level security. And this is where you can specify who has access to your data. So I'm going to click here, and I can create a new policy. RLS is enabled. We need to create a new policy so that we can explicitly specify who can access this data and who cannot access the data. So we're going to say new policy. I'm going to go into full customization, and for now I'm just going to set it to all. Okay, this is just a test. Maybe in some of the future videos we'll deal more with this, but I'm just going to say all, and as you can see, it defaults to all public roles if none are selected. We're going to give this a policy name, and we're going to say review, and it's generating the SQL statement for the policy. We can just save this policy. And now we have a policy created for all access. We're enabling all access here, okay? So now that we have this, and if we go to our table editor, we can take a look at our table. We have 1 row there. And you can also take a look. We have one active RLS policy here, and you can take a look at it. It's applicable to all. The next thing that we can do is we can jump into FlutterFlow and build a quick UI to access this data and to manipulate it. And so here I am inside FlutterFlow, and I created a very, very simple app. It just has one page here, and we are going to be building a simple to-do app using the data in our Supabase. So it's a Supabase to-do. And the first thing that we need to do before we start building this app is we need to go into settings and integrations. We need to scroll down. We need to pick Supabase, and we need to enable it. Once you enable it, you need to enter your API URL and your anon key. Okay, so we're going to go back into Supabase. We're going to go into settings here. We're going to go into API. And as you can see, we have this URL and we have this anon key. Okay, this is a key that you can share. It's available to public. But this is a key that you never want to share because this key has the ability to bypass row level security, never share it publicly. So we're going to copy this right here. We're going to paste this URL, and we're going to copy this public key. We're going to paste it here. Once we've done that, we can say get schema, and that's going to pull up the schema, and we immediately see to do our table here and the schema of the table. So as you can see, everything is correct. We can start using this data, pulling this data, reading this data in our app. All right, so let's go ahead and quickly build a to-do list. We are going to start with a row that's going to have an ability to enter a new task. So we're going to have a row right here, and we're going to have a button. So maybe an icon button. If you fill it in, you press this button, it's gonna create a to-do item there. Let's change this real quick to enter task. Okay, something like this, and then we are gonna have a list of not completed tasks followed by a list of completed tasks. Okay, something very, very simple. So I'm gonna have a list, and I'm just gonna call this not done. Okay, this is going to be a list of not done things. We're going to have a row, and inside the row, we're going to start with the task name. And then we are going to have maybe a couple of buttons, maybe a checkbox, or maybe like a delete button as well. So I'm going to search for a button here. We're going to do an icon button, and I'm going to duplicate this, and let's align it. Yeah, that looks better. So let's have this, that's going to be kind of a checkbox. Okay, so if you click on that, that's going to make it done. And this is going to be a deletion. So maybe a delete. Yeah, something like this. That looks nice. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Okay, yeah, that looks good. That looks good to me, nicely aligned. And we have this. Let's go ahead and duplicate it. And so now we have our second one. This is going to be done. Done list. Let's make it not done list. Okay, so that we know it for later. And let's go ahead and put maybe some text so that we can separate it. So I'm going to put that right here. I'm going to put that. So there it is. Let's go ahead and put that right there. All right, so now we have our entering for the task. We have this kind of division. Let's give it some padding there, and let's make it bigger. And we're gonna say done tasks. Okay, so now that we know this is gonna be our done task, this is gonna be our not done task. Okay, very, very simple, nice and quick and easy. And the next thing we wanna do is we wanna pull our not done from Supabase. So we're going to do a backend query. Add a backend query. We're going to say Supabase query. We're going to pick our to-do table. It pulled all the tables. And we're going to do a filter. And the filter is going to be, we want where the done is false. So just the stuff that's not done, we're going to say done. And this is going to be equal to false. Okay, so these are going to be not done items. We can also order them, but let's do that a little bit later. And then here we can have our done list, and we're going to add a query, and we're going to do Supabase query to do list of rows. We're going to have a filter on done. Now done is going to be true. Okay, you can set true equal to true. Okay, so there we have it. So now it's displaying properly. Let's do some of the other functionality real quick. This is our input task. And once we input it, right, once the person clicks on this button, it's going to add it to this list here. So we're going to come here, we're going to add an action, and we are going to search for Supabase. We're going to insert a row into our to-do, and we're going to set the fields. So these two fields are automatic, so we can remove them. That's fine. But these other fields, we need to specify values for them. So we're going to go to widget state. We're going to set task. This is going to be automatically to false. Okay. So potentially you can even have a default value, which is false, and you can skip it here, because if you don't include it, it's going to have a default value. So we're going to specify, we're going to have an explicit value here. Now let's first run this app and see if it's working, and then we're going to implement the other little functionalities. So let's create a quick test environment. All right, so here's our very, very simple app. We have the enter task item there, input field, and we have a list of tasks that we haven't done yet. Okay, so I can enter a new task, and that's going to be listed here. So I can say task 2, I'm going to add it. And once I click on this button, if I go back into our database here, I can see that I just added the task. But the problem is on the app, it's not refreshing automatically like you would see if you were using Firebase. And that is because you need to do an extra step. This is what you have to do. You have to go back here. And when you are clicking on a button and you want to display something, you want to, you're expecting the database, the data to change, you need to add another action. So what you want to do is you want to come here, add an action, and you want to search for refresh database request, okay? And then you pick your widget, right? You want to pick exactly what you want to refresh. So in this case, we want to refresh not done list, okay? So if we do that, we come back and we reload the app. That should hopefully automatically add new items. Now, right now, we are seeing 2 items, which is how many we have in the database. But because we didn't specify that the name should be dynamic, it's still showing hello world. You can quickly change that inside the app. Click on hello world, set from variable. We have this to-do row, and we can pick a task, just like you would do it with Firebase. So now if you reload the app, we should see our tasks named correctly. All right, so here are 2 tasks. And remember, we had initially the issue where it wasn't updating. So if I say task 3, I press plus, it automatically displays it. There's just an extra step that needs to be done. And so now that you see that it's displaying new data, it's refreshing the database, let's go ahead and quickly add some of the proper actions to these elements, namely deleting and updating each of the rows so that they're going to be displayed here at the bottom. So I'm back inside the app, and let's go ahead and click on this icon right here. And what we want to do is we want to open the editor here. We want to add an action, and we want to search for Supabase. And we're going to be updating the row. We're going to be picking the row. And here you have to pay close attention because we need to first find the row that we want to update, and then we can only update it. So it's a little bit different than Firebase. And so first, I'm going to be matching the row. I'm going to be finding the row that I need to have updated. So I'm going to add a filter, and we're going to match it by ID, right? Because we have the ID of the row. We're going to match it by ID, and we're going to say equal to from variable, and we're going to find that ID inside the row. So you see what's happening here is we are matching it by ID from the schema, and then ID from Supabase. So kind of like ID in FlutterFlow from the schema compared to the ID that we're pulling from the database. So you have to do that because with databases, you have to specify which rows that you want to operate on, okay? So now that we match the ID, and that's going to give us one row back, we can set fields. We can come in here and we can set the fields. Now let's add our fields, and we are only interested in done. That is what we're working. So I'm going to remove the other fields. And if you don't change the other fields, they're just going to be left how they were before. So we're going to say, we're going to go to done, and you can just click false here, and it's automatically going to pick specific value. And we want actually true in this case. Okay, so we found the row, we set it true, and remember, we need to refresh it. So we're going to add an action, and we're going to do refresh, and we're going to refresh both lists at the same time. We're going to refresh not done. I'm going to copy, and I'm going to paste. Actually, I'm going to come here, paste an action, and then I'm going to refresh done list. That way, both of the lists are going to be refreshed at the same time. So now we can hit close. We can reload our test environment, and hopefully that's going to have that logic completed there. Okay, so here's our app back again, and let's say we want to finish this thing. Let's say we finished our work and we want to just relax and chill. So I'm going to click on this one, and there you have it. So this is still not updated, but you can be pretty sure that is that task there. I can also do the same thing for this one, and that's going to move it down as well. Okay, so there you have it. Let's quickly fix these things as well. Row task. And if we reload this, that should hopefully display it correctly. All right, so there you have it. We can also do the same thing for the last task here, and it's down here. Now let's go and implement the last step, which is deleting the items. Okay, we're gonna come back here, and let's say we're just gonna implement it on this list here. We're gonna click this, come here, we're gonna open the editor, we're gonna add an action, search for Supabase, pick Supabase. We want to delete the row. We're going to pick our table, and we're going to match the rows. Okay, we're not setting anything. We just need to find those rows. And how we're going to be matching them? Well, by ID, of course, because that's a unique field, and that's what it's for. So we're going to say ID. ID in FlutterFlow is equal to ID that we're pulling in, right? So this ID right here, and that is the ID that we're clicking on. And then we want to refresh it. We're going to say refresh database request. This is not done list, and there you have it. So let's go ahead and reload our test environment. All right, so here we are. Let's say we want to delete task 3. Nobody knows what task 3 even means, so we're going to delete it right here. It's gone. We're going to delete this one right here. It's gone as well. We're just going to leave this one here, so at least we have something there. And so that is a quick example of a to-do app using Supabase as a backend. There are a couple of things that you have to do differently. There are a couple of things that you have to add in order to do it correctly, but it's very, very similar of how you would do it with a Firestore DB backend. Now, there's still a couple of things that I want to talk about real quick. Now, even though Supabase is evolving and it has a lot of other things that you can use, at the time of making this video, FlutterFlow only supports it using as a backend. So it doesn't do authentication. It doesn't do a couple of other things, but who knows, maybe that's going to be changing in the future. Because the way I see it, Supabase is a relatively new product, and they're rapidly developing. It's open source. It has a nice free tier that you can use. And so I think it's only a matter of time before some of these other tools are going to be supporting some of the other offerings and features that Supabase provides, such as authentication and a bunch of other things. And so definitely have a look, play around with it, see how it works, take a look at some of the functionalities, and try to build an app or two using at least their backend, which is a very, very nice, very, very flexible, and offers you a lot of things that even Firebase doesn't offer. Things like relationships, unique keys, automatic values here and there. It's a different paradigm, but it comes with its own advantages there as well. Now, if you enjoyed this video and you are looking to take your no-code knowledge up a notch, you want to improve it in the upcoming year, you want to build more apps, you want to build more money, you want to do other things, maybe build that one app that you've been putting off for a very, very long time, you definitely want to check out my Patreon page. Not only will you get access to all of the apps that I've covered on this channel, you can view and or clone all the FlutterFlow apps. You can take a look at some of the other apps that I've built for other platforms, but you'll also get access to exclusive content not available to the general public. Things like live streams, Q&As, behind the scenes content, my exclusive series of masterclass episodes where we are digging into one of the more interesting topics or aspects of FlutterFlow that a lot of people have been struggling with. In fact, there's going to be another episode dropping shortly on an area that a lot of people are struggling with and they need some clarification on. And so not only do you get a lot of exclusive content by joining my Patreon community, you will also be supporting this channel and supporting my work. So if you have not yet joined, I definitely urge you to come and check it out. We have an awesome community there, and I would love for you to be a part of it. And so this will do it for today's video. I really hope you've gotten value here. Definitely check it out. It's an exciting offering. It's an exciting product. Definitely deserves your attention. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Like this video, subscribe to the channel to see more, and I'll see you in a future one.